Welcome to the Lore Tribunal, where every legend has a price and every life has a verdict. Imagine a father, a brilliant mind, the greatest architect the ancient world would ever know. He builds wings out of wax and feathers so his son can escape a prison with no doors. He gives one warning: don't fly too high. But he gave him the wings anyway. He gave him the power, knowing the risk. The sun ignores him. The wings melt under the sun. He falls into the sea, and the sea does not give him back. This is not just the story of Icarus falling. This is the story of Daedalus, the man who designed his own tragedy with his own hands. The court is now in session. Daedalus was not just an inventor. He was the greatest architect the ancient world had ever produced, a mind so far ahead of his time that kings did not know whether to reward him or fear him. Long before the wings, his hands had already reshaped the world. He designed temples that seemed to defy the weight of their own stone. He built machines that moved as if they had a will of their own. It was said that his statues looked so alive, men chained them at night so they would not walk away. But his masterpiece, his curse, was the Labyrinth of Crete, a maze so vast, so cunning, so perfectly engineered that no man who entered ever found his own way out. Not by memory, not by luck, not by prayer. King Minos commissioned it to hide a monster. Daedalus built it to hide nothing, because a mind like his did not build to conceal. He built because he could not stop himself from creating what no one else could imagine. But genius is dangerous to the men who own it. Minos feared that Daedalus knew the maze too well, so the king who once crowned him with glory locked him in a tower instead, along with his son Icarus. No ship would carry them from that island. No road would lead them home. So Daedalus turned his eyes to the one kingdom no wall could touch and no king could claim: the sky. He studied the birds that circled the tower like omens. He gathered their feathers, one by one, and bound them with wax until man wore the armor of gods. Before they leapt, he gave his son the only law that mattered: fly neither too high nor too low. Too high, and the sun will melt the wax. Too low, and the sea will drag you under. Then 2 men stepped into open air, and the impossible obeyed them. They flew. At first, the wings worked exactly as designed. They passed over the sea like a rumor the world would tell for 1,000 years. But Icarus was young, and no young heart has ever been handed wings and told to stay low. He climbed, not from foolishness, from joy. For the first time in his life, nothing above him said enough. Daedalus called out. The wind took his voice before it reached his son. The wax began to weep. The feathers peeled away one by one, like a verdict being read out loud, until nothing was left holding a boy to the sky. He did not fall like a mistake. He fell like a triumph running out of time. Here is what the old poets were too afraid to write plainly. Daedalus did not lose his son to bad luck. He lost him to an invention that worked perfectly, carrying a boy exactly as high as wax and sun would allow, before reminding him he was never meant to belong there. This is the oldest curse known to any creator. You can design the escape. You can speak the warning. But once your creation takes flight, it no longer answers to you. Now the tribunal does not call Daedalus to the stand. It calls you. You are currently building your own labyrinth. Maybe it's a career you hate, a marriage you're holding on to, or an ego that refuses to apologize. You built the walls, and now you're complaining that you're trapped. The greatest architect in the ancient world could design a maze no one could escape, and wings that let men touch the sky. But he could not design a warning his own son would obey. Daedalus escaped the maze, but he couldn't escape the grief. You might escape your problems, but can you escape yourself? Final question for the record. What are you building right now that might one day be the thing that falls and takes someone you love down with it? You are the defendant. The Lore Tribunal will return with Case 13. The court is adjourned.